The Reincarnation Cycle. A Tale of Love Across Lifetimes. Chapter 1. The Historian's Discovery. The scent of aged paper and dust filled the cramped archives of the university's historical library. Eleanor Carter, a historian specializing in medieval manuscripts, carefully turned the brittle pages of a 15th century ledger. Her fingers traced the faded ink, deciphering the looping script of a long-dead scribe. Then she found it, a loose sheet tucked between the pages, nearly crumbling at her touch. It was a letter, written in a hurried, desperate hand. My dearest Alistair, if fate is kind, you will find this. If not, then perhaps in another life. I cannot bear the thought of this war tearing us apart again. Remember the vow we made beneath the oak tree. Wherever we are, in this life or the next, we will find each other. Yours eternally, Isolde. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. The words resonated in her mind, like an echo from a dream. She couldn't quite recall. She had spent years researching forgotten love stories. But this felt different. The names, Alistair and Isolde, tugged at something deep within her. A sense of déjà vu so strong, it made her fingers tremble. That evening, she took the letter to her colleague, Professor Daniel Hartwell, a man whose sharp wit and quiet intensity had always unnerved her in a way she couldn't explain. This is extraordinary, Daniel murmured, his dark eyes scanning the page. It's not just a love letter, it's a plea across time. Eleanor hesitated. Do you ever feel like some things are meant to be found? Daniel looked up, their gazes locking. For a heartbeat, something unspoken passed between them, an inexplicable recognition, as if they had known each other far longer than just a few years. Then the moment passed. We should research this further, he said, his voice steady, though his hands clenched slightly around the letter. Eleanor nodded, unaware that this discovery was the first thread in unraveling a mystery that spanned centuries, one that bound their souls together across lifetimes. Chapter 2. Echoes of the Past. That night, Eleanor dreamed. She stood on a rain-slicked battlefield, the air thick with the metallic tang of blood. Armor clashed around her, men shouting in agony. And there, across the chaos, was a knight, his visor raised, revealing piercing green eyes that locked onto hers with desperate recognition. Isolde, he roared, fighting toward her. Before she could reach him, an arrow struck his chest. Eleanor woke with a gasp, her heart pounding. The dream had felt too real, too vivid. The next morning, she and Daniel pored over historical records, searching for any mention of Alistair and Isolde. They found fragments, a knight and a noblewoman torn apart during the War of the Roses, a pair of star-crossed lovers whose story ended in tragedy. It's them, Eleanor whispered. But why do I feel like I know them? Daniel exhaled slowly. Because we've lived this before. She stared at him. What? I've been having dreams too, he admitted, of a woman with your face, in different times, different places. And every time we're torn apart, a chill ran down Eleanor's spine. Was it possible? Reincarnation. A love so strong it defied death itself. We need to find out more, she said. If this is real, if we've been searching for each other across lifetimes, then there must be a way to break the cycle. Chapter 3. The Renaissance Interlude. Their research led them to Florence, where records spoke of a painter and his muse, Lorenzo and Beatrice, whose love had ended in betrayal and heartbreak. In a hidden alcove of an old chapel, they found a fresco, half ruined by time. It depicted two figures embracing beneath an oak tree. their faces eerily similar to Eleanor and Daniel's. "This is us," Daniel murmured, tracing the faded paint. "Another life, another tragedy." Eleanor's vision blurred as another memory, Beatrice's memory, flooded her mind. Lorenzo's hands, stained with paint, cupping her face. "We will find each other again," he vowed, "no matter how many lifetimes it takes." Then the sound of footsteps, a rival artist, a dagger glinting in the candlelight. She gasped, snapping back to the present. "We were killed," she whispered. "Just like the night and Isolde." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Every time we find each other, something, or someone, tears us apart. Then we have to change it," Eleanor insisted. "This time we remember. That has to mean something." Chapter 4. The Vow Beneath the Oak. Their final clue led them to a crumbling estate in the English countryside, where an ancient oak tree still stood, the same one from Isolde's letter, from the fresco, from every lifetime they had shared. Beneath its gnarled roots, they uncovered a small metal box. Inside was a single parchment, inscribed with a vow. "By blood and soul, we bind ourselves beyond death. No force, no fate shall keep us apart. If love is true, the cycle breaks." Eleanor's hands shook as she held it. "This is it, the key to breaking the curse." Daniel took her hands, his grip firm. "Then let's end it." Together, they spoke the words aloud, the wind howling around them as if the universe itself resisted. Then, silence. A warmth spread through Eleanor's chest, a sense of wholeness she had never known. The past lives, the pain, the endless searching. It was over. Daniel pulled her close, his lips brushing hers in a kiss that felt like coming home. This time, they had chosen love over fate, and this time, it would last. The Time-Traveling Lovers. A Journey Through Time for Love. Chapter 5. Stranded in the Roaring Twenties. The machine spat him out in a burst of blue light, the smell of ozone thick in the air. Dr. Julian Carter stumbled forward, the vision swimming as the world resolved around him, into a dimly lit alley, the distant sound of jazz music drifting through the night. Not again. This wasn't Victorian England. This wasn't where she was. His hands clenched around the small battered notebook in his pocket. The only thing he had managed to keep through each jump. Inside were his frantic scribbles, his desperate attempts to leave messages for her, wherever, whenever she might be. "Clara, if you find this, look for me in Paris, 1924. Follow the music." He had written those words in the margins of a newspaper in 1889, hoping she would see it. But now, he was here, in the wrong time once more, and Clara was still lost somewhere in history. Steeling himself, Julian stepped out of the alley and into the electric glow of 1920s New York. Chapter 6. The Jazz Singer's Secret. The speakeasy was alive with laughter and the sultry wail of a trumpet. Julian moved through the crowd, his modern clothes drawing curious glances. He needed information, any hint that Clara had passed through this era. Then he saw it, scratched into the wooden bar, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. A tiny familiar symbol, a star, inside a circle, their symbol. His heart pounded. She had been here. The bartender, a sharp-eyed woman with a knowing smirk, slid him a drink. "You look like a man searching for something." Julian leaned in. A woman. Dark hair, bright eyes. Might have seemed out of place. The bartender's smile deepened. "She left something for you." From beneath the counter, she produced a small folded note. Julian's hands shook as he opened it. Julian, I'm chasing you through time. They call me the Phantom Singer here. Apparently, I have a talent for jazz. I'll be in London next, 1940. Find me before the bombs fall. Always yours. Clara. Julian exhaled, his chest tight. She was alive. She was remembering. But 1940 meant war, and if he didn't reach her in time, he couldn't think about that. He had another jump to make. Chapter 7. The Blitz and the Bookshop. London was burning. Julian arrived in a haze of smoke, the skyline lit by the orange glow of falling incendiaries. The Luftwaffe's bombers roared overhead, and the streets were chaos. Clara was here. Somewhere. He ran through the rubble, dodging debris, his mind racing. Where would she go? Where would she wait for him? Then he remembered. Their favourite place. The old bookshop on Charing Cross Road. The one they had visited in their own time. The one she had always said felt like a sanctuary. He burst through the door just as another explosion shook the street. The shop was empty, except for a single book left open on the counter. The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Julian's breath caught. Inside the cover, Clara had written, Julian. I'm being pulled again. The machine's failing. If we don't meet in the next jump, find me outside of time. Remember the bridge. I love you. Clara. His blood ran cold. Outside of time. The machine wasn't just sending them randomly. It was breaking down, scattering them further apart with each jump. If he didn't fix this soon, they might never find each other again. Chapter 8. The Edge of Eternity. The final jump was different. No city, no era. Just an endless, starless void. A place between seconds. Julian stood on a bridge that wasn't there, suspended in nothingness. And then, Clara. She was running toward him, her dress fluttering as if caught in a non-existent wind. Julian! He caught her in his arms, holding her so tightly, he feared she might vanish again. We're outside the timeline, she gasped. The machine, it's collapsing. Julian looked around, the laws of physics unraveling around them. Then we have one chance. He pulled out the device, the broken, glitching time machine that had started all of this. With shaking hands, he recalibrated it, inputting the last coordinates he could think of. Home. Clara's fingers intertwined with his. What if it doesn't work? Julian pressed his forehead to hers. Then we'll fall together. He activated the machine. The world dissolved. Chapter 9. The First and Last Moment. They woke on the lab floor. The machine hissed, sparking, then died completely. Julian sat up, dazed. Clara was beside him, real, solid. Here, it's over, she whispered. He pulled her into his arms, his voice rough with emotion. No, it's just beginning. They had crossed centuries, defied time itself to find each other. And now, finally they were where they belonged, together. The Cursed Portrait. A Love Trapped in Time. Chapter 10. The Dreams Begin. The portrait arrived on a rainy Thursday, wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. Lila Hart, an artist known for her melancholic cityscapes, hadn't ordered it, but something about the way the delivery man avoided her eyes made her hesitate before refusing it. It's for you, he muttered, thrusting the package into her hands before retreating into the downpour. Curiosity won. She peeled back the wrapping, revealing an ornate gilded frame surrounding a painting of a couple locked in a tender embrace. The man, dark-haired and solemn, gazed down at the woman, whose auburn curls spilled over her shoulders like liquid fire. Their love was palpable, frozen in brushstrokes, but their eyes held something darker. Sorrow. Leela hung the portrait above her fireplace, unaware that night would pull her into their world. Chapter 11. The First Memory. She dreamed of a ballroom. Candlelight flickered against gilded walls, the air thick with perfume and whispered secrets. Lila, no, not Lila, stood at the edge of the crowd in a sapphire gown, her heart pounding as his gaze found hers across the room. Sebastian. He cut through the dancers like a blade, his hand outstretched. Evelyn, the name sent a shiver through her. This wasn't a dream. It was a memory. Evelyn's memory. They danced, his fingers warm against her waist. Meet me at midnight, he murmured into her hair. The garden pavilion. Then, a yeah scream! Lila jolted awake, gasping. Her sheets tangled around her legs. The portrait loomed over her, the couple's expressions unchanged. Yet she could have sworn the woman's fingers had tightened on the man's coat. Chapter 12. The Betrayal Unveiled. The dreams grew sharper. Night after night, Lila lived Evelyn's life. The stolen kisses in shadowed hallways, the promises whispered against bare skin. But with each dream, the darkness crept closer. Then came the worst one yet. Evelyn stood in the pavilion, clutching Sebastian's letter, the one begging her to flee with him. But when the clock struck 12, it wasn't Sebastian who emerged from the roses. It was his brother, Charles, his smile venomous. Did you truly think he'd choose you over his inheritance? The letter crumpled in Evelyn's fist. She turned, and there was Sebastian, watching from the terrace, his face a mask of cold resignation. Leila woke with tears on her cheeks. The portrait's colours seemed duller now, the couple's embrace stiff with tension. You were set up, she whispered. The frame creaked in response. Chapter 13. The Artist's Intervention. Leela scoured historical records, unearthing the truth. Sebastian's family had disowned him for loving Evelyn, a penniless artist's daughter. Charles forged the letter, ensuring Sebastian would witness Evelyn's betrayal. Heartbreak followed. Evelyn threw herself from the cliffs. Sebastian drank himself to death beside her unfinished portrait, and their spirits, trapped. Lila stood before the painting, a brush in hand. I can fix this. She painted over the lies, adding Charles's shadowy figure lurking in the background. The forged letter clutched in his hand. With each stroke, the portrait shifted, the couple's faces softening. Then, a hand pressed against the canvas. From within. Chapter 14. The Final Reconciliation. The studio walls dissolved. Lila stood in the cliffside garden of Evelyn's memories. The real Sebastian and Evelyn before her, translucent with centuries of grief. You saw the truth. Evelyn breathed. Sebastian reached for her. All this time, I thought you'd abandoned me. Their fingers intertwined, glowing brighter as the curse unraveled. Lila stepped back, her own tears falling. Go. With a final grateful smile, they faded, not into nothingness, but into Huanam back in her studio. The portrait was blank, but for the first time in 200 years, the air felt light. The parallel worlds, romance, a love written in the stars. Chapter 15. The First Shared Dream. The dream always started the same way, with the scent of rain. Lena opened her eyes to a city she didn't recognize, its skyline a jagged silhouette against a violet twilight. The streets hummed with an energy that felt both foreign and achingly familiar, and then, as if pulled by an invisible thread, she turned and saw him, a man with storm-grey eyes, standing beneath a flickering street lamp, staring at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. "You're here again," he said, his voice low with wonder. Lena's breath caught. "Again?" He stepped closer. "I've dreamed of you for months." And just like that, the world tilted, because she had dreamed of him too. She woke with his name on her lips. Elias, and the unsettling certainty that he wasn't just a figment of her imagination. He was real, somewhere. Chapter 16. Messages in the Margins. The dreams grew sharper. Lena and Elias learned to leave traces for each other. A sketch on a napkin, a sentence scribbled in a book. One night, Lena woke with her fingers stained with ink, a note clutched in her hand. "Find the blue door on Elm Street. It's where our worlds overlap." She didn't know an Elm Street, but the next morning, passing through a part of town she rarely visited, she saw it. A faded blue door tucked between two shops, its paint peeling, her pulse spiked. It was exactly as Elias had described. Hand trembling, she reached for the handle and woke up in his world, standing in a rain-drenched alley. Elias gripping her arms with desperate shock. "You're here," he breathed. For one breathtaking second, they were together. Then the universe tore them apart again. Chapter 17. The Cosmic Rift. Astronomers called it an anomaly, a shimmering crack in the night sky, a place where the laws of physics frayed. Lena knew better. It was a doorway. Elias had seen it too. In his world, the rift hung over the city like a scar, pulsing with strange light. They'd both realized the truth at the same time. Their dreams weren't just dreams. They were glimpses of parallel realities. And the rift? It was thinning the walls between them. "We have one chance," Elias said in their next shared dream, his fingers laced with hers. "When the rift peaks at midnight, we can meet, really meet, but only for a few minutes." Lena's chest ached. "What happens after?" His thumb brushed her wrist. "We choose." Chapter 18. The Choice. The night of the convergence, Lena stood beneath the rift, its light painting her skin in otherworldly hues. Then, a hand grasped hers. Elias. Solid, real. They clung to each other, hearts pounding, the air around them crackling with unstable energy. "We can stay like this," he said urgently. "If we step through the rift together, our worlds might merge. But it could also destroy both." Lena looked into his eyes she'd crossed dimensions for, and saw the same fear, the same longing. "Or," she whispered, "or we let go, live our separate lives, remember each other in dreams." The rift pulsed, its edges fraying. Time was running out. Lena tightened her grip. Merge them. Chapter 19. The New World. The explosion of light should have blinded them. Instead, it rewrote them. Lena gasped as memories flooded in, 2 lifetimes overlapping. Elias's hands were in her hair, his forehead pressed to hers as the world stitched together around them. When the light faded, they stood in a city that was both familiar and new, a blend of their 2 realities, and no one else seemed to notice. A thing had changed, except them. Elias laughed, breathless, pulling her close. "You're really here." Lena kissed him, the taste of starlight on her lips. Somewhere, in another universe, they might have been just a dream. But in this one, they were forever. The Ghost and the Historian. A Love That Defied Death. Chapter 20. The First Sighting. The Blackwell Library was supposed to be empty at midnight. Dr. Eleanor Graves liked it that way. No distractions, no interruptions, just the quiet hum of history waiting to be uncovered. But as she turned the page of a crumbling 19th century ledger, the air grew unnaturally cold. A whisper brushed against her ear. You came back. Eleanor spun around, her heart slamming against her ribs. The library was still empty, except for the faint outline of a man leaning against the bookshelves, his form shimmering like mist under moonlight. He wore a Victorian waistcoat, his dark eyes burning with recognition. She should have screamed, should have run. Instead, she whispered, "James?" The name slipped out before she could stop it. A name she didn't remember knowing. The ghost smiled, bittersweet. You do remember me. Chapter 21. The Murder in the Ledger. James Blackwell wasn't just any ghost. He was the library's original owner, and a man murdered in 1892. Eleanor scoured historical records, her hands shaking as she pieced together the truth. James had been poisoned at his own engagement party. The prime suspect, his fiancée, a woman whose name had been scrubbed from history. But every time she read the accounts, a headache spiked behind her eyes, and flashes of a life she couldn't have lived flickered in her mind. The scent of roses in a winter garden, James's hands warm against her cheeks, a whispered promise, no matter what happens, find me. Then, the taste of bitter wine, a scream, betrayal. Eleanor gasped, dropping the papers. James materialized beside her, his fingers hovering over hers. You were there, he said softly. You were her. Chapter 22. The Truth in the Locket. The locket was hidden behind a loose brick in the library's oldest wing, the one place untouched by renovations. Inside, a faded photograph, James, and a woman who looked exactly like Eleanor. Charlotte, James murmured, grief etching his spectral features. My love, my downfall. The memories hit Eleanor like a tidal wave. Charlotte, a lowly librarian, stealing kisses with the library's heir. Their secret engagement, the night James's brother found out and slipped arsenic into Charlotte's wineglass, framing her for James's murder. Her execution, her dying plea to the universe. Let me find him again. Eleanor's breath came in ragged bursts. We were happy. James's ghostly hand pressed over her racing heart. And we were robbed. Chapter 23. The Choice to Stay, Justice. Was easy to deliver. Eleanor published the truth, clearing Charlotte's name and exposing James's brother as the real killer. The moment the article went to print, James's form solidified. No longer a tormented spirit, but a man at peace. You can move on now, Eleanor whispered, tears streaming down her face. James cupped her cheek, his touch almost solid. Or I could stay. The library lights flickered as he stepped closer. Not as a ghost, not as a memory, as your guardian. Eleanor laughed wetly. You'd haunt me forever. His smile was brighter than the afterlife. I'd love you forever. And when his lips brushed hers, warm, real, alive, in a way that defied logic, she knew. Some souls weren't meant to say goodbye. The Celestial Love Story. A cosmic dance of fire and fate. Chapter 24. The 1,000-Year Dawn. The first time they touched, the universe shuddered. Aurelia, the oldest star in the western sky, burned with a quiet intensity, steady, eternal, her light a constant in the endless dark. Then he came, Carl, the wandering comet, all fire and reckless motion, streaking through her orbit like a promise. They were never meant to meet. Stars did not love comets. Comets did not linger. But when their light intertwined, the cosmos itself held its breath. The Council of Celestials decreed their punishment, 1,000 years of separation, with only a single day together in mortal, form as reprieve. And today, after 999 years of aching silence, was their day. Chapter 25, The Human Hourglass. Aurelia woke in a body of flesh and bone. Her starlight dimmed to a pulse beneath her skin. The world was too loud, too bright, too heavy, but none of that mattered, because Cale was already there. He stood on the cliff's edge, the wind tearing at his dark hair, his human form just as wild and beautiful as his celestial one. When he turned, his grin was all fire. "You're late." She ran. Their collision sent sparks skittering across the grass, not metaphorically, but literally, because even in mortal shells, they were still creatures of the cosmos. Kale's hands burned where they gripped her waist. Her lips tasted like sunlight when he kissed her. "One day," he murmured against her mouth. "One day, and then another 1,000 years of nothing." Aurelia pressed closer. "Then we make this one count." Chapter 26, The Rebellion of Heaven. They should have known the council would interfere. The sky darkened at noon. The air hummed with the static of celestial wrath. And then, the hunters descended. Shadows given form. The hunters existed solely to enforce cosmic law. And Aurelia and Kyle, they were the greatest crime of all. Love that defied divine order. Kale shoved Aurelia behind him as the first hunter struck. "Run!" But she was a star. She did not run. Her hands blazed with supernova fury. "You will not take him from me again." The battle that followed lit up the mortal world, a storm of fire and fury that sent humans stumbling into churches, praying for salvation. But the real war was in the silence between heartbeats, when Cale met Aurelia's eyes and whispered, "There's another way." Chapter 27, The Last Constellation. Stars were not meant to merge, but as the hunters closed in, Aurelia and Cale reached for each other, not as star and comet, but as one. Their light fused, the explosion shattered the hunters, sent shockwaves through the celestial spheres, and left the council trembling in its wake. When the dust cleared, the humans below saw a new constellation blazing in the sky. Two figures entwined in an eternal embrace. The council, for all its power, could not undo what love had forged. And so, with gritted teeth, they decreed, "Let them stay." And the Forgotten Letters. A love story waiting to be finished. Chapter 28, The Dusty Attic Discovery. The old Victorian house had been in Claire Bennett's family for generations, though no one had lived in it for decades. When her grandmother, Ice, passed away, leaving Claire the keys and a cryptic note. Some stories are meant to be found. She hadn't expected to uncover a secret buried under layers of dust and time. Pulling open a rusted lockbox, hidden beneath the attic floorboards, Claire's fingers brushed against a bundle of yellowed envelopes, tied together with a frayed silk ribbon. The first letter was dated June 12th, 1924, and the ink, though faded, still carried the weight of emotion in every stroke. "My dearest Eleanor," it began, "every night without you is a lifetime. When this war is over, I swear I will come back to you. Meet me beneath the old oak tree where we first kissed. I've left something there for you, something that will change everything." The signature at the bottom made Claire's breath catch. Captain Daniel Hartwell, her great-grandfather. But Eleanor, that wasn't her great-grandmother's name. Chapter 29. A Love Torn Apart by War. The letters told a story Claire had never heard. Daniel Hartwell, a young soldier, had been engaged to Eleanor Whittaker, a woman whose name had been erased. From family history, their love was passionate, their letters filled with promises of a future that never came to pass. The last letter, dated November 11th, 1918, was unsent. Eleanor, the war is ending, but I fear I will not make it home. If you're reading this, know that I loved you more than life itself. The treasure I promised you is real. Look beneath the oak, beneath the roots. It was meant to be our beginning. Forever yours. Daniel. Claire's hands trembled. Daniel had never returned from the war, and Eleanor, she had vanished from history entirely. But the oak tree, the one mentioned in the letters, still stood at the edge of the family property, and Claire was determined to find out what lay beneath it. Chapter 30. The Heir of Eleanor's Legacy. Tracking down Eleanor's descendants wasn't easy. After Daniel's death, she had disappeared, leaving no trace, until Claire found a faded newspaper clipping from 1925. Miss Eleanor Whittaker, renowned botanist, departs for Europe to pursue research. A dead end, not quite. A quick search led Claire to Dr. Jonathan Whittaker, a historian living in Boston, Eleanor's great-grandson. When Claire showed up at his doorstep with the letters, his expression shifted from skepticism to stunned disbelief. "You found them," he whispered. "She never spoke of Daniel, but my grandfather once told me she kept a secret until the day she died." Claire's pulse quickened. Did she ever dig beneath the oak? Jonathan's lips curved into a slow, knowing smile. "No, but I think we should." Chapter 31. The Buried Promise. The oak tree stood tall, its gnarled roots weaving deep into the earth. With shovels in hand, Claire and Jonathan dug where Daniel's letter had directed, until metal clinked against wood. A small rusted lockbox. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a stack of bonds, worth a fortune even now, and a single, flawless diamond ring. But what made Claire's breath catch was the note tucked beneath it. For Eleanor. "A life together was the only treasure I ever wanted. If fate denies us that, then let this be your freedom. Go where I could not. Live the adventures we dreamed of. Yours, always." Daniel. Jonathan exhaled sharply. She never knew. Claire's eyes burned. But we do. Chapter 32. The Love Story Finished. The bonds were donated to a veterans charity in Daniel's name. The ring. Jonathan held it up to the sunlight, then, with a quiet smile, slipped it into Claire's palm. Seems like fate has a way of finishing what our ancestors started. Claire's fingers curled around the ring, warmth spreading through her chest. Maybe some loves weren't meant to end. Maybe they were just waiting for the right people to carry them forward. Beneath the oak tree, where Daniel and Eleanor had once dreamed of forever, Claire and Jonathan made a new promise. This time, history wouldn't get in the way. The Immortal's Dilemma. A Love That Defies Time. Chapter 33. The First Memory. The scent of jasmine always did it. Lucian had learned over the centuries that certain things triggered her memories. fragrances, songs, the way sunlight dappled through leaves in late afternoon. He had watched her die in 12 lifetimes, each loss carving deeper into his immortal soul, and yet he always found her again. But this time was different. This time, when the breeze carried the scent of jasmine through the cafe where she sat, sketching absently in a notebook, her pencil suddenly stopped. Her head lifted, her dark eyes widening as they locked onto his. "I know you," she whispered. Lucian's breath caught. No, not yet. Not this soon. Because if she remembered now, it would only make losing her again unbearable. Chapter 34. The Fractured Past. Her name was Eilara Tansase. In this life, an artist, free-spirited, alive in ways that made his ancient heart ache, and now haunted. "I keep dreaming of a man with your eyes," she confessed one evening, her fingers tracing the rim of her wineglass. "In one life we were in Paris. In another, a war tore us apart. And in the oldest dream, you watched me burn." Lucian's knuckles whitened around his glass. The witch's pyre, the first time he had lost her. "They're just dreams," he lied. Ilara's gaze sharpened. "Then why do you look at me like you're grieving someone who's still alive?" The truth hung between them, heavy as a death sentence. Chapter 35. The Breaking Point. The dam broke on a stormy night. Ilara woke screaming, drenched in sweat, her hands clutching at her throat, just as she had when the plague took her in 1348. Lucian was at her side in an instant, his cool hands framing her face. "Breathe," he begged. "Ilara, breathe." Her eyes were wild. "I died. I've died so many times. And you were always there." There was no more denying it. Lucian bowed his head, his voice raw. "I'm cursed to remember. You're blessed to forget." "Blessed?" She let out a broken laugh. "How is it? A blessing to lose you over and over." The storm outside mirrored the tempest in his chest. For the first time in centuries, he let himself hope. What if this time we change the ending? Chapter 36. The Witch's Bargain. The answer lay with the one who had cursed him. The witch, Maeve, was ancient even when Lucian was young. She still lived in the shadows, her laughter like crackling parchment. "You want her immortal?" Maeve sneered when they found her. "After I made you watch her die a dozen times for spurning me." Ilara stepped forward, fearless. "Undo it, or make me like him." Maeve's grin turned knife sharp. "There's a price. Immortality requires a sacrifice. One of you must surrender your soul to power the spell." Lucian didn't hesitate. "Take mine." Ilara's cry of protest was cut short as Maeve's claws sunk into his chest, and the world went black. Chapter 37. The Choice at the Edge of Forever. Lucian woke in a void. Ilara knelt over him, her tears falling onto his face. "You idiot," she choked. "I was supposed to be the one to leave." But something was wrong. Maeve's laughter echoed around them. "Oh, I took his soul. But souls are stubborn things. Yours called his back." Ilara's hands were warm. Too warm. Lucian sat up slowly, realization dawning. Her heartbeat was gone, but so was the curse. Maeve's voice faded into the dark. "You wanted forever. Now you have it. Together." Epilogue. A New Eternity. The first 100 years were the hardest. Learning to exist without breath, without hunger, without the rhythms of mortal life. But they had time. So much time. And when the world grew too familiar, they changed their names and began again. Some loves are written in the stars. Theirs was etched into the bones of the earth itself. The echoes of a melody. A love composed across time. Chapter 38. The Dream Sonata. The music always began at the edge of sleep. Isla Carter would drift into dreams, her fingers twitching against phantom violin strings as the melody wove through her, haunting, aching, familiar. It was a piece she had never played, yet her hands knew every note, every trembling crescendo. Tonight, the dream was clearer than ever. She stood in a candlelit chamber, the air thick with the scents of rosin and burning wax. Before her, a man in 18th century dress bent over a harpsichord, his fingers coaxing out the very melody that had haunted her. When he turned, his dark eyes locked onto hers with startling intensity. "You hear it too," he whispered. Isla woke with a gasp, the echo of his voice still lingering in her ears. Chapter 39. The Composer's Secret. The name, Julienne Moreau, appeared in no history books. Isla scoured archives, her obsession growing with each dead end, until she found a crumbling diary in the back of a Parisian antique shop. February 14th, 1783. Tonight, I composed the sonata for a lost love. Celeste swore she would return by spring, but the king's men took her for a traitor. If music can bridge time, let this song find her again. The diary's next pages were torn out. Isla's hands shook as she turned to the shopkeeper. Who was Celeste? The old man sighed. A revolutionary, executed before she could hear Julien's final piece. He tapped the diary. They say he went mad, playing it every night, waiting for a ghost. Isla's dream melody suddenly had a name and a tragedy. Chapter 40. The Duet Across Centuries. The dreams grew louder. Julien's ghostly hands guided hers on the violin, their music weaving together in a way that defied time. "Play with me," he begged one night, pressing a spectral bow into her grip. The sonata was meant for two. Isla woke with her fingers blistered, her violin case open beside her bed, though she hadn't touched it in days. Her roommate stared. "You were playing in your sleep." That's when Isla knew. This wasn't just a dream. Julien was reaching through time, and if she played the sonata awake at the same hour he once had, would the walls between worlds break? Chapter 41. The night the music lived again. Midnight, the empty concert hall. Isla's bow hovered over the strings as the clock struck 12. She took a breath and began Julien's sonata. For 3 measures, she played alone. Then, like a whisper, another violin joined hers. Julien materialized beside her, his coat powdered with centuries of dust, his smile brighter than the stage lights. "Celeste," he breathed. Isla didn't correct him. Maybe she was Celeste. Maybe souls remembered what names forgot. Their music swelled, the very air shimmering with the rightness of it. For one perfect movement, time didn't exist. Chapter 42. The Final Note. The sonata ended as all great loves do, with a lingering note, trembling between joy and grief. Julien's form began to fade. "Wait!" Isla choked. He cupped her face, his touch like moonlight. "You gave me what she never could. A last duet, then softer. Now go live the life we were denied." When the last echo of music faded, Isla sat alone on the stage, but her violin case held a new sheet of music. one signed in ink that hadn't dried yet. For Isla, with all my time.